Welcome to Everything's Not Black and White with your hosts, Lala and Brian.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode. We are going to have so much fun today. We have my beautiful, amazing, heartfelt friend, Lori Lutz, here today from Vision Coaching and Consulting. If you all have ever met somebody whose energy is just so effervescent and you're like, I need that person to be my friend, this is Lori 100%. Every time we get together, we have the best time. She gives the best hugs, and her smile is like a 1,000 light bulb, right? 1,000-watt light bulb.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. That's it. So she's amazing, and I cannot wait to dive into her story. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, them, they, us's, welcome Lori Lutz to the EMBW podcast.
Welcome.
Thank you. Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me. The sentiments are shared. I love a little law in my life, as well as now newly Brian.
Yes. Well, we are super excited to have you. And so I want people to start off, a little bit learning about you and some of your background. And so one of the things you always talk about is an approach to living a lighter life. And I like the lightness of life. So can you tell us a little bit more what that means and how do you use that into your coaching philosophy?
Living lighter will be different for everyone. But it's that sense of not being weighed down by life, being really intentional about how we decide to spend our time and share our energy, essentially living better. My philosophy is authenticity. Yeah. I live or have lived and learned what I speak, what I teach, what I guide, but I won't have the answer for everything.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about humans, we naturally have the solutions inside of us, and we just need someone to help bubble it up. Yeah. And I'm your someone.
Yes.
Your partner, your ride or die, that support line that most don't even realize they need.
Yeah, I love that so much. I've often, and Brian will tell you, I often say everything you need inside of you is already there. You just need the right unlock. So what you just said about bubble up, that's 100% a philosophy that I live by.
Yeah.
So I love that you said that. Yeah. And just understanding about time. You mentioned time in the very beginning of your answer, and we always talk about time is the most valuable and precious resource you have because it's finite. You can get more money, more clothes, more, things, but you can never get more time.
Right.
And so it's really important to be intentional about how you spend your time. Yeah. So that's great. I love
how you
that.
Spend it, how you share your energy.
Yes.
So important.
Yes, that is so important. So one of the things that, your career journey, you're obviously an entrepreneur now, but you spent 20 years, 2 lovely decades doing a lot of works for some very interesting companies. And then you talk about being behind the scenes too, somebody who is kind of putting that together. So tell people a little bit about your corporate journey.
I have lived and worked almost my entire life behind the scenes. And what I mean by that is that if you Google me, you probably won't find my presence, right? Because what has always lit me up over the years is really lifting others up. So within my career journey, it has really been focusing on building teams in that corporate landscape and really helping others succeed and achieve what matters most to them. So it was really kind of a natural transition when I decided to kind of go on the entrepreneurial path into this coaching and consulting arena, because it's a similar type lens, but I've been so fortunate along the way to have felt like I've been living the vision that was mine for 20 years, but the grind is really what got me here today. And I am ready to rip open that curtain and say, hello, world. Yes. How can I help? Because I want to be someone's champion and advocate outside of that corporate setting and helping others on the path that I've been able to find to live lighter.
I love that so much, your heart to be selfless and support and promote others. You know, I think that's one of the things that's so interesting. In the corporate setting, it usually feels very dog eat dog, right? When everybody's trying to run up that ladder and step on so many people along the way. And then you've taken an opposite effect where you're not stepping on people, you're reaching back and lifting and pulling people up.
Yeah.
You know, that's honestly a little bit of a differentiator for you.
For me, that's what lit me up. I didn't want to be in the front. And what I've learned over the years too is that we have got to be open. We have got to, and when I say be open, I mean be open, period. Be open to everyone, to everything, to every idea, to every opinion, because different brains allow us all to succeed and innovate.
Yeah. I love that. You know, one of the things that I've been doing in our business is we've been looking at a book called The Skilled Facilitator, and they talk about unilateral control approaches versus mutual learning approaches. And one of the things about mutual learning is that you know that people have information that you don't. So you give everyone equal privilege and equal access to the conversation. And there's no one person dominating or controlling that conversation anymore. And that's definitely antithetical to what typical corporate is, right?
Yeah.
It's been very hierarchical, very patriarchal, and saying that I know best because I'm the boss.
Yeah.
And that's not the way to go. So in your experience, Lori, when you're talking about looking at people and lifting them up from a human potential perspective, like what are some of the common traits or factors that you've observed in individuals who are really able to optimize their fullest potential?
Yeah, they are hungry. Their thirst for never-ending learning is so incredible. They are the overachiever, and most times they are also the overcapacity human.
Does that sound familiar, Brian?
Yeah.
Yeah. Who does that sound like?
You?
Oh, okay, good. I was going to say, yeah, that's me. Yeah, well, you know, that coupled with my ADHD really has me everywhere all the time, right?
Yeah.
You know, so my head is being, like, we laugh because usually about 5:30 in the morning, I want to talk about all the world's woes. And he's like, I'm just trying to get the last hour of sleep. Can you just like chill?
Right.
And I just can't help it because so many things just come to my mind and I want to express them.
Yeah.
And I have so many things I want to do. I don't have enough time to do them all.
Yes.
Right.
I know.
So that prioritization is really hard for me too. You know, how do you do that? How do you set up prioritization in your life to make sure you can get the things done that you want to get done?
As I mentioned, just throughout the years, what got me here today was the grind. So I was really fortunate to kind of take this self-discovery and reflection period to figure out what will light me up in my next. And it is slowing down a little bit. And I've worked really hard for others as well as on myself over the years. And I think now I have a really great perspective on how to achieve that balance and alignment of personal and professional priorities that I really like to integrate when I am working with clients.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I was actually just listening to this morning Fawn Weaver, who she is a Black woman, Black entrepreneur who started the Nearest Green, Uncle Nearest bourbon line. And she just recently bought one of the largest wine vineyards in France. Like she has really just taken on a whole nother level to entrepreneurship in cocktails and in spirits. But one of the things she said this morning is that she always intentionally takes a Sabbath for her, and it doesn't have to be Saturday or Sunday, but it has to be one day a week that she does absolutely nothing but rest and take care of herself. And she's a busy woman, a very busy woman with a large empire that she's taking care of. But she says, on my day of rest, I don't do this.
Yes.
Right. And it's so hard, I think, as entrepreneurs to actually feel like you can take time away, because then you feel like when I'm not doing the business, then I'm losing money and those kind of things. But that whole rest and taking that grind and hustle away is important to replenish and refresh yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what advice would you have for people who don't like to let go of the day, but know that they need their rest?
I mean, you have to prioritize self-care. I say this a lot, but, finding that balance of performance and supporting your well-being, it's very difficult, but when you find it, it's magical. But you cannot perform at your best if you are not taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
With the extensive business background that I have, I'm more tactical than some coaches' approaches, but I always make sure to integrate a goal of what is going to feed someone's soul, activities of love, if they cannot find it within their career. It is proved that if we can find 20% of love in what we do, it ignites this sense of resilience, this feeling of fulfillment, and amps up our energy.
Yeah.
Just 20% in what we do, find love. So self-care, find the love, that's your solution.
So hypothetically, just say like there's a guy out there who's married to a super hard worker and they never take that time to kind of have self-love and do their thing.
Listen, stop telling my business on this podcast.
So what would you suggest for, especially being a small business owner? I know we feel like we got so much work. We're trying, and that's a good thing. We're not complaining. We have so much work though. Sometimes the work just kind of gobbles up that extra time that we set aside. How do you suggest that you maintain that and just maybe push the work off to another day, or because we just want to get the work done, and sometimes I'll say we, but mainly her. Hypothetically, doesn't take that time.
There's a lot of love in this room, people. I wish we were filming.
Telling tales out of school. Yes.
I mean, to answer that, you have to make it a priority. So if it is something as small as blocking off 2-3 hours on your calendar to make sure that it is just a you and her connection, it's mandatory. And you have to also agree on it. So here we go with a little couples coaching for you here.
Couples coaching time. We're listening.
No, I mean, I feel the love. So obviously there's a lot of trust and respect in this relationship. So you just have to make it a priority for both of you. And I get it. It's round the clock. I've always been that type as well, just 24/7, 24/7. But when you take that time, whether it's an entire day, which I do suggest it is.
Yes, ma'am.
Or a handful of hours on the week that you just can't find it. Just make it a priority. Block it on your calendars if that's what you live and breathe by. And just do something special, even if it's just laying around, relaxing. It doesn't have to be anything like magnificent, because that time together is what will boost your energy back to start again.
Yeah. I know one of the things we really enjoy doing is about twice, maybe 3 times a week, we'll do hot tub time. And it's just 20 minutes, maybe a half hour altogether. Just to allow ourselves, there's no phone, no TV, put some music on, and it's just her and I just having casual conversation. It kind of gives us a little bit of a recharge and a settling at the end of the day.
Yeah. And don't get me started on that, how beneficial that heat is for your body.
Oh, yes.
And disconnecting from the devices.
Yes.
So you guys are doing the right thing.
Thank you. We appreciate that. One of the things that I think is so fascinating and wonderful about you, Lori, is when you talk about vision in the holistic, authentic living, you think about it on all the sensory levels, right? You think about it, the mental, the emotional, the physical, the spiritual, all of those things. Like, why do you think it's so important to touch each one of those pieces for a more holistic life?
Because to integrate all of that is so invaluable for us, for our souls to exist. Vision is our strongest sense. But you don't have to see to have vision. You know, think about that for a second, you know, and personally and professionally, if we don't have vision, we won't grow. And some will come to me with that clear, crisp vision. And others really have no clarity on what's next. And it's really about finding what lights a human up. And then once we know that and we can conceptualize what that is, we can build a vision around it.
Yeah, I love that. You know, one of the things I think about a lot, and I tell Brian all the time, you know, because some of them, the work that I do is pretty heavy. We're talking about human work, right? Human work is heavy. Yeah. And I know you probably feel a lot of the same thing, but I try to find those moments of joy. Like you mentioned, if I can find one moment of joy every day, it gives me the energy and the strength to keep going. And one of the things that I love that you say all the time is that happiness has an ROI to it. It's the ultimate ROI. And so for people, ROI means return on investment. So when you say that, it's a very powerful statement, but how can you expand about how do you measure happiness and its impact on people's lives, especially those working in a corporate environment?
Yeah, this actually struck me. I want to say almost day one, I was starting entry-level career. I was just like, man, I need to find happiness within this. And then as I grew, it was happiness for others. So if we're thinking for the corporate setting, how is business? How is performance? How is it? Is it consistently good? There was a 10-year growth study on over 50,000 brands. And they found that the companies that placed improving people's lives in the center of all they do outperformed the markets by 350%.
Wow.
That's a lot.
That's huge.
Huge.
That is huge.
Sit with that for a second. Outperforming your competitors, outperforming the market by over 350% by essentially just incorporating more compassionate behavior within your organization.
I love that. I love that so much. You know, a lot of what I do is around obviously employee engagement and company culture. And a couple of those pieces, I always tell people you can't max people's capacity out and expect them to perform at highest levels. They need breaks. They need time for innovation and creativity, brainstorming, those kind of things. So you have to leave room and grace for people to do that. And I think that's a space where people can find that 20% happiness.
Right.
Right? When they have the capacity to actually do it.
Yeah.
It's too hard when you have so many things coming at you and you can't even breathe. I mean, there's people I hear all the time, I didn't have time to go to the bathroom. I didn't have time for lunch. I didn't have time for a break. I'm like, baby,
yes.
How do you do that?
That's just in our house.
Listen, if you don't stop telling my business on this podcast.
I love it.
Listen.
I love it.
But he ain't totally lying.
But you're right. Getting back to the employee engagement and all of that, like if we can have employees happier, lighter, it's a better existence for everyone.
Absolutely. Especially when you're talking about satisfying your customer, because everybody in the C-suite, they're not directly touching the customer. It's usually those employees who have direct contact. Yeah. So they are your brand ambassadors or they're your brand detractors. So you need to make sure you're taking care of those people and giving them that platform to be able to feel like they can be authentic, but they also have what they need in forms of grace and space.
Absolutely.
So I love that so much. So let's talk a little bit more about your consultancy. So you talked about vision and not having sight to have vision. I love that so much. I heard that one time from a gentleman and I just love that so much. So how do you, when you talk about investing in humans, other humans, as they kind of think through their vision, like what kind of investment have you seen transform a human being or their team the most? Like what kind of things have you seen happen in that space?
Yeah. I mean, if people feel support and that investment in themselves, their performance is insane. I wasn't recruiting at this time, actively recruiting at this time, but was connected to a human years ago that didn't quite have his vision fully fleshed out. He was working in the restaurant industry, but had a side hunger for marketing. And as you know, marketing is a very vast industry. So just speaking with him and talking through what lights him up, I knew that day I was gonna need to work with him in some capacity. And he was just hungry for a chance. And when we provide people that opportunity, it won't disappoint. The support, the love, the investment of our time and resources, he has since, he was what we needed at that time, a green, fresh perspective. And today he is this rock star living his best in the field, the siloed field, the specialty field in marketing that he loves.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful. I think people, it's like we talked about in the beginning of this episode, it's like people just need that person to help them unlock their deepest dreams and desires, because there's a lot of things in the world that tells you you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you'll never be able to do that, you've not done that before, you won't be successful. So all those little voices that's in the back of our head all the time, that's putting doubt in our head, even when we have evidence that we can do something, we still have those little negative voices, and it's hard to counteract those. So I would love to know, briefly from your coaching experience, what are a couple of little tips that people can do to silence those negative voices, because they're horrible?
Yeah. It bubbles up from our ancestral mindset. It comes from back in the day where I'm going to get real nerdy on you, but bring
it.
We love nerding out here. Trust me.
But we're no longer in a time where we have to fight off a predator, right? But we still have this negative overtone in our minds that bubble up. And the best thing that we can do is reset our nervous system in the moment. So one of the tools, again, it's going to be a little silly, so stick with me. One of the tools that you can do, you'll see animals doing it all the time, and Taylor Swift did sing about it. But you have to shake. Yeah, you have to shake it off. Come on, Brian, I want to see you shake it.
Brian, shake it.
If you shake it off, it completely resets your nervous system. And I get it. You won't be able to do the shakes at every scenario, even though, Brian, you could have just right then, but so you do other things like deep breathing. You find whatever will help you really reset your nervous system to get that negativity out of your mind.
Yeah, I love that you talk about shakes, because I've been actually reading recently about enslaved people back in the day when they were going through obviously a very tough time being on these plantations. That's one way they would actually try to help get through the day, is by the shakes and moving and patting and doing those stomping and dancing. Yeah. And that was exactly how they were able to reset their nervous system to get through an incredibly stressful and oppressive time. Absolutely. So there is absolute science to what you're talking about. Yeah, I love that so much. So much.
And that's a huge approach of mine, is I am such a nerd and love to learn about our brains. So every kind of, even though my coaching tends to be more tactical just from my business experience, like I am so connected to how valuable it is for us to learn about our brains and how we can insert certain things in our lives to live longer, better. And I fully bring that to my clients too.
I love that. Yeah. I've been reading, I'm as much as nerd as you are, and I've been reading about neuroplasticity over the last couple of weeks too. And for the audience, that is really about your brain being able to learn new things. And even when people are older, they're like, oh, I'm set in my ways, I'm not going to be able to change. That's a choice. Mm-hmm. You can change if you want to. Your brain is malleable, so it can absolutely change but you have to make the decision to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, and for years, the scientists, the doctors told us our brains stopped growing at 25, but we no longer have to believe that because of neuroplasticity and everything that that's being researched and found.
Yeah, I love that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm such a nerd. Yeah. Well,
Hey, I'm the only one in school here. So.
Yeah, that's right. But you have your own journey of things that you changed as an older person, that ideologies that you had that you've learned to grow your brain, and that's been something that's so impressive to watch.
Yeah, I think for speaking of the neuroplasticity, of course I didn't say that right. That's okay. One of the things that I got, especially when I met LaShondra, I had a very sheltered life. Like my extent of traveling and all that was like Tennessee to see my grandpa, Indiana to see my grandma, and then my home base here in Columbus. When I met her, now I've been literally all over the world. The experience really is what helped me grow by not being in that sheltered type of situation.
Right.
Yeah, I love that. And that's the thing. You have to give yourself opportunities to experience different things and know that there's a risk to you're not going to do everything right the first time. Yeah. There's a big sense of failure that's going to happen. Embrace it, lean into it, and learn, and let the journey of the process be just as important as the destination.
Yeah.
We talk about that a lot.
Yeah. I mean, and getting it back to vision itself, like people often talk about be in the moment, live in the moment, and that is all good and great. But even during the bad moments, the good moments, just know that you have the capability to envision what's next, right?
Absolutely. And that is actually a beautiful segue to when you talking about intrinsic motivation, right? Intrinsic, extrinsic for people. Intrinsic is what happens inside you. Extrinsic is what happens in the peripheral around you. But you talk about unlocking intrinsic motivation, which is key to your work. So what kind of strategies do you employ to really help employees and people find and harness that kind of motivation?
Yeah, it is, in the simplest term, it's all about connection. Motivation is all about connection. Personally, professionally, finding or feeling connected, a purpose, a drive to get us moving, vision velocity, if you will.
Love it. Vivi.
Understanding what connects us and how we can find that spark to ignite that velocity flame is imperative.
Yeah.
You may not think of it this way, but motivation is emotional. The word emotion from its Latin root is that which moves us, that which puts us into action. So if we are not emotional beings, we won't have that fire will not exist to get us moving into action. So a big part of what I do is really finding that connection so then we can get lit up and move forward.
Yeah, I love that you're saying that because I actually work with some engineers who are incredibly logical, and I'm introducing a lot of emotional intelligence in there for them, and it's very foreign. Like, it has been like very challenging for them to want to even do it. They're like, oh, this is uncomfortable. Yeah. And I'm like, But for you to have a true experience, your logical brain and your emotional brain have to work together. Yes. You can't separate the two. You have to do it together. So that has been so fun for me watching these people kind of wrestle and struggle with it. Yeah. But it is so important. And I love that you talk about that emotion is for us to move forward because that's really totally important. Yeah. And I love that. Yeah. I love that. So as we look to the future with our vision, what is happening with you in vision? Like, what do you have coming up? What are you working on? Yeah. How can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, of course. Well, first, to get in touch with me, you can always visit my website. It is just liveyourvision.co. I'm also really active on LinkedIn, and that's just Lori Lutz, as well as Instagram, which is the handle live_your_vision. In full transparency, the future, I think for me, I feel like I get lit up with a lot of giving, and not that I feel like this industry caters mostly to people that are already successful. Those that are successful, they know it. They have a coach because they are the way that they are. And I know I have to find that balance where I also have to eat. But I think in the future for Vision, I would like to be able to donate some of my services and really aligning myself with a nonprofit that needs this type of service within their organization to low or at no cost. I am so fortunate to have had so much love in my life and support from a beautiful family and beautiful friends. And I just want to be able, after I can eat, to be able to give that as well.
I love that, Lori. And there's nothing wrong with that because we absolutely feel exactly the same way. We are philanthropists at heart, but we know we have bills to pay and things to do. But, as much as we can to give back, we always try to lift people up. So when I have contracts, I can hire 1099s and get people on another place in their financial journey. And so those are things that I take very seriously. And we as a family look forward to doing all the time. So we know you will be successful in that.
Absolutely.
And that people will absolutely benefit from just being in your presence.
Thank you.
The way we just benefited today. I know. It is so cool.
A little impromptu couples coaching.
I know. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Well, we are so grateful that you spent some time with us today, Lori, and we know our listeners will be so enlightened and encouraged by this. So thank you so much for your time and energy today.
Thank you so much for having me, both of you.
We loved it.
We appreciate you being here. This has been so much fun.
Yes, absolutely. And Brian, for those who want to get in touch with us, how do they do that?
Yeah, you can email us at enbwpodcast@gmail.com, and we'd love it if you follow us on Facebook.
That's right. So that's all the time we have for today. We're so grateful for all of you for listening. Thank you from all of the continents except Antarctica. Antarctica, we need you listening. So please let us know how we can get in touch with you. We love you all. Thank you for coming. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.